I never thought a single night could change the meaning of my entire life. It was the summer of 1978 in Knoxville, Tennessee, a thick, humid season that wrapped its fingers around your lungs like a warm, invisible fist. I was 25, fresh out of the Air Force, and barely surviving the civilian world. Everything about home felt foreign to me. The narrow streets, the old porch swings, the way people smiled without knowing the weight you carried. I remember that night clearly. It was a Saturday, and my buddy Rick was throwing one of his infamous reunions, which were really just excuses to drink, get high, and drown memories none of us wanted to talk about. The house was a creaking, two-story farmhouse on the outskirts of town, surrounded by rust-colored fields and broken-down cars. The kind of place where time paused for you to screw up. Rick handed me a pill and a beer without saying a word. We never asked what anything was, we just took it. Numbness was a kind of therapy back then. I remember laughing. I remember music, loud and sharp. And then nothing. Not even darkness. Just silence. Then something strange. I was floating. Not flying, not dreaming floating. I looked down and saw myself slumped on Rick's couch, a beer can tipped beside me, my face a pale echo of life. Someone was shouting my name. Someone was shaking me. But it was all muffled, like listening through thick glass. And then, as if pulled by an invisible thread, I was rising higher and higher until the ceiling vanished, the house disappeared, and I was alone in a soft, endless void. It wasn't black. It was warm, golden, and alive. I don't know how else to describe it. It wasn't light as we know it, it was conscious, aware of me. It knew everything I'd ever done. Every lie, every kindness, every rage-fueled night when I tried to drown the war from my bones. And yet, it didn't judge. It only loved. That was the first time I cried. Not because I was afraid, but because for the first time in my life, I felt completely known and still loved. Suddenly, the golden warmth gave way to a scene. I was standing beside a wide river that shimmered like mercury under a sun that didn't burn. Trees lined the banks, tall, ancient things, and I could hear laughter, music, and voices that felt like family I hadn't seen in eons. On the other side of the river was a figure. I couldn't see their face clearly, but they felt familiar, deeply so. Their presence was overwhelming, like a memory long buried but never forgotten. They didn't speak aloud, but I heard them inside me. You're not done. I wanted to argue. I wanted to stay. The peace, the love, the truth, it was everything I never knew I was missing. But they just shook their head gently. You must remember who you are. That's when the memories hit me. Not just of this life, but of other lives. Times I had lived before. Lives where I was a healer, a soldier, a mother, a child, all woven together in a thread of learning and returning. And through them all, one truth echoed. Love is the only thing that survives. The river still rippled gently, a mirror of light and motion that whispered truths into my soul. I stood on its edge, held in the warmth of that golden presence, trying to comprehend the enormity of what I'd just been shown. The figure, my guide, my soul's older sibling, perhaps reached out, and though we didn't touch, I felt their energy wrap around me like a familiar embrace. It wasn't physical, it was deeper, reaching into the marrow of who I was beneath every title and role I'd played in my human skin. Come, they said, or rather imparted. In an instant, we were somewhere else, not walking, not transported, just shifted. We stood in a wide, circular space that had no roof, yet was covered in stars. The ground beneath our feet shimmered like quartz, and surrounding us were what I can only call mirrors, but not the kind you see in a hallway or bathroom. These were living, fluid mirrors that shimmered and pulsed with memories. Each one reflected a different version of me. I stepped toward the first mirror. In it, I saw myself as a little boy no older than 6, kneeling in our backyard in Knoxville, burying a bird I'd found lifeless under a tree. I'd cried the whole time, whispering words I didn't know I knew, praying it would fly again. That was your first act of compassion, the guide said softly. It echoed, Every act of love ripples outward across time, space, and soul. I moved to the next mirror. This one showed me in uniform, in a desert halfway across the world, screaming over a wounded friend. The rage, the helplessness, the guilt, I felt it all again. But then I saw something new. I saw how that pain had shaped the way I'd comforted others when I returned. How every moment I offered understanding to someone else was born from that agony. Another mirror revealed something I never expected. It was a version of me I'd never met: a man who stayed in school, never enlisted, married early, had 2 kids, and ran a community center. His life was steady, peaceful. Yet even he had carried the same spiritual lessons: loss, love, growth, just through different means. "Every path teaches," my guide whispered. "There is no right or wrong, only experience." My knees gave out, and I fell to the ground, overwhelmed. The guide kneeled beside me, radiating only patience. "I wasted so much," I said. "I hurt people. I hated myself." "And yet," they said, "you kept trying. You never stopped seeking the light." I cried again. This time not from shame, but release. Because for the first time, I understood something no preacher, parent, or commander had ever taught me. Life is not about being perfect. It's about becoming aware. I looked up at the mirrors, each one a chapter in the soul's endless book. Some were painful, others beautiful. But all of them were sacred. Suddenly, I noticed the mirrors fading, replaced by what looked like a vast map, a tapestry of threads, golden and silver, crisscrossing across what I assumed was the earth. And where those threads intersected, little flares of light glowed. "Those are people," the guide explained. "Souls meeting each other, reminding each other." Reminding each other of what? That they are not alone. I stood before the glowing tapestry of light and connection, utterly speechless. I could feel each thread as if it passed through me, vibrating with emotion, memory, and meaning. Every intersection sparked like a divine fingerprint, and somehow I knew these were the moments that truly mattered. Not the promotions, not the medals, not even the failures. It was the look in a stranger's eye when I handed them food outside the VA clinic. The whispered prayer I didn't believe in but said anyway when my mother was dying. The silence I kept when my friend needed someone to just sit beside him instead of speak. I had lived my life thinking I was broken, that nothing I did could matter because I couldn't fix the damage. But now I saw, it was in the cracks that the light had entered. "Why are you showing me this?" asked the guide. My voice trembled. "Because you forgot." "Forgot what?" "That you are part of something much larger than your story." That truth hit me like a wave, gentle, yet unstoppable. My life wasn't a disconnected sequence of events. It was a thread in a vast and sacred design. And every person I had touched, every person who had touched me was another thread, weaving the same eternal truth. We belonged to each other. Suddenly, the tapestry faded. The ground beneath me shifted again. I found myself standing in what looked like a meadow at dusk. Fireflies blinked like stars on earth, and a warm breeze carried the scent of something sweet, maybe honeysuckle, maybe memory. Ahead, there was a small cabin. Smoke curled from its chimney. It wasn't extravagant, just a single-story, wood-slatted home, with a rocking chair on the porch and an open door glowing from within. "I know this place," I whispered, and I did. I had never seen it in this life, not with my eyes. But my soul had been here, maybe in a dream, maybe before birth, or maybe it was the home I carried in the deepest folds of my spirit. I stepped onto the porch. The boards creaked, but it didn't feel ominous, it felt alive. As I crossed the threshold into the cabin, I was met with a presence so overwhelming, I nearly collapsed. Not fear, not recognition. There were no walls inside. Just infinite space dressed in warmth. At its center, a radiance that didn't blind but healed. It pulsed like a heart, and though it had no face, I knew this was the source. The light. Good. Whatever name we give it, it doesn't matter. It was everything, and it had always known me. My memories returned in a torrent before my birth, before this life, other worlds, other lessons. I had chosen this life. I had volunteered, even, to come into this hard, beautiful world as James Holloway, son of 2 broken parents, soldier of a complicated war, man with wounds invisible and seen. I had agreed to forget, so I could remember in the most sacred way, by living. And now I had remembered. I fell to my knees, tears streaming down my face. Not from sorrow, but gratitude. Because for all the pain, all the failure, all the nights I'd wanted to die, I had never truly been alone. The light surrounded me like a parent welcoming home a long-lost child. It asked no questions. It gave no lectures. It simply loved. I could have stayed there forever. I wanted to. But then I felt it. A tug. Faint at first, like a thread pulling loose at the edge of a sweater. Then stronger. It was coming from behind me, like a tide turning back to sea. Turned to look. The guide was there again, their expression full of sorrow and knowing. "It's time," they said. I looked back at the light. I wasn't ready. I had remembered. Why couldn't I stay? "Because others still haven't," they said gently. "And they need you." The moment I turned from the light, I felt the ache of leaving it, like being pulled from the arms of a parent after lifetimes apart. My soul protested not in anger, but grief. I had only just remembered who I truly was. I had just begun to understand the purpose of it all. And now I was being asked to return to a world that, to be honest, had felt like it didn't want me. The guide extended a hand, and though I didn't take it physically, I felt my soul reach toward them in trust. "You won't remember all of this," they said, their voice like music wrapped in wind. "But you will remember enough." "Will I see you again?" I asked. "We never left you," they said, and with that, everything began to dissolve. The golden light, the cabin, the stars, the river, gone. All at once, I was falling not fast, not violently, but descending like a feather in reverse gravity. I passed through layers of sensation, sound, smell, taste, pain, all the senses of the physical world returning like instruments warming up before a concert. Then, like a match struck in the dark, I gasped. Air flooded my lungs. My body convulsed. Voices swirled above me, sharp and urgent. A paramedic's face came into view, pale and panicked. "He's back. We've got a pulse." I was on the floor in Rick's house. The same godforsaken living room, reeking of sweat and old beer. Someone was sobbing nearby. Someone else cursed and backed away in disbelief. My chest ached like hell. My head throbbed. But none of it mattered, because I remembered. Not the details. The golden place, the guide, the cabin, all of it was fading like a dream evaporating in morning light. But the truth of it, the weight of it remained in my bones like an echo. I knew I had been somewhere real. More real than anything this world could offer. And I knew that I'd been sent back for a reason. It took weeks before I could speak about it. At first, I wasn't sure I hadn't simply hallucinated the entire experience. The medics said I'd overdosed on a combination of barbiturates and alcohol enough to stop my heart for almost 3 minutes. 3 minutes of clinical death. But what I experienced couldn't be explained away by chemical chaos. I saw things I couldn't have invented, truths I felt in places no drug could reach. The first person I told was my Aunt Ellie. She was the only one in the family who'd ever believed in anything beyond what the eye could see. She listened without judgment, holding my hand as I trembled through every detail I could remember. When I was finished, she said, "You were given a glimpse, James. Don't let it go to waste." So I didn't. I got clean. I started therapy. I wrote down everything I could recall from that experience, even when the details came in flashes that made no sense. I volunteered at a shelter downtown, just sitting with vets who felt as lost as I had. I didn't preach. I didn't try to convert anyone. I just listened, held their hands when they cried, reminded them quietly, consistently that they mattered. Because I knew now, every moment of kindness is eternal. Every small act of love echoes beyond what we can comprehend. And every person, no matter how broken, carries within them the same light I saw beyond the river. It's been over 40 years since that night in Rick's living room. A lifetime has come and gone. I'm 71 now, and my hands shake when I write, but I still remember the light. Not perfectly, memories fade, and dreams blur, but the essence of it never left me. Like a melody that haunts you, half remembered, playing quietly behind the noise of the world. It's always there. A reminder. I didn't become a preacher. I didn't write a best-selling book. No lightning struck from the heavens to transform me into a saint. But I lived differently. After my recovery, I got certified as a counselor and spent 3 decades working with combat veterans. Men and women who had seen things no one should, who carried guilt like lead weights, who didn't believe in anything anymore. And I didn't try to fix them. I just sat with them, listened, held their gaze when they broke. Because that's what had been done for me in the silence of the beyond, when I stood before the mirrors and the river and the cabin. I had been seen. And that's what we're all dying for, isn't it? To be seen, to be known, and to be loved anyway. One afternoon, a young woman came into my office. She couldn't have been older than 23. Her face was drawn and colorless, and when she sat down, she looked straight ahead and said, "I tried to kill myself last week." I didn't speak right away. Just waited. Eventually, she said, "But when I was unconscious, I saw my grandmother. She's been dead since I was 5. And she told me I had more to do." I remember nodding, the corners of my eyes wet. She looked at me and asked, "Was that real? Or was that just my brain going haywire?" And I said the only thing I knew to be true: real is what stays with you. What changes you? She exhaled. A single tear rolled down her cheek. That was the moment I realized I hadn't just been sent back to remember. I'd been sent back to remind. I still dream of the river sometimes. In the dream, I'm always standing at its edge, barefoot, my feet sunk into cool earth. The sky is never quite day or night, just a soft, holy twilight. The same figure waits on the other side. They never speak, just smile. Sometimes I think they're letting me know they're still with me. Other times I think they're preparing me for when it's time to return for good. And I'm not afraid. Because now, I understand, death isn't the end. It's a coming home. But until that day comes, I wake up, stretch my old bones, and do the small things. I walk my dog. I water my plants. I call my daughter to tell her I love her. I visit the hospital to sit with someone who has no one else. The world is so hungry for light. And the miracle is every one of us carries a spark of it. I don't know when it will happen. No one does. But I felt it coming for some time now, not with fear, but with a kind of sacred anticipation. Like the way the sky changes color before the first snow, or how the tide draws back before revealing the ocean's hidden treasures. My body is slowing. I can feel it in the ache of my bones and the way silence has grown sweeter than sound. My hands, which once steadied trembling soldiers and scribbled frantic journal pages, now move gently, deliberately. My breath takes longer pauses, as if making space for what's ahead. And I've made peace with it. Not because I'm brave, but because I remember. I remember what waits on the other side. I've made arrangements. My daughter, bless her heart, will read the letters I've written. One for her. One for her children. One for the people I sat beside in the waiting rooms of life. I've left behind books filled with scrawled words that tried to put the unexplainable into language. But most of all, I've left behind a trail of small lights, kindnesses, prayers, conversations in quiet rooms that I hope will keep glowing long after I'm gone. If you're reading this, it means I've already crossed that river again. You may not believe in what I've told you. That's all right. Belief isn't the point. Being awake, that's the point. Being present to this short, strange, beautiful life. Paying attention to the people around you, to the silence between the noise, to the ache inside your chest when someone says, "I see you." Because that ache is your soul remembering. In my final dream, just days before the pain in my chest told me it was time I saw them again. The river, the figure, the stars above the trees. This time, I didn't linger. I crossed. My feet didn't touch the water. I floated, carried on waves of memory and music and light. And when I reached the far shore, the guide took my hand not as an invitation this time, but as a welcome. "You did well," they said. "You remembered." And I smiled, because I finally understood all of it. If you've ever stood on the edge of grief, of life, of what feels like the end, I hope you know something. You are not alone. The light that waited for me waits for you too. Patiently, lovingly, without judgment. And when your time comes, when your name is called not with sound but with knowing, you won't be afraid. You'll just go home. Until then, keep loving, keep listening, keep lighting the way for those still stumbling in the dark. Because you are the echo of something eternal. And the river always remembers.